Good morning. You are listening to Trace Elements Radio. We are live today, of course, traceelementsradio.com, Revolution Radio, Studio A. Good morning, everybody. And Wolf Spirit Radio. As far as I know, there may be more. If there's more, I thank you very much. I hope there is. Well, the news today. There's something I've said on the weekend because we need to talk about fakeness. Completely fake. Everything's fake. Fake emission readings, fake religions, fake history, fake financial results, fake trades in the security markets, fake economic data, fake reports, fake eyeballs online, fake fraud. Is currently the leading business, economic, and social model on this planet. So, buyer beware is how I want to start this off. I posted a little thing on the weekend, and I realized the fill-in-the-blank thing that I did could also be changed to a blah blah blah. I think today I'm going to present it one more time with blah blah blah. See which one you like. So, blah 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 USA up to blah blah people were killed and blah blah more injured after a gunman opened fire at a blah blah. There are conflicting reports about casualties, but blah blah from the blah blah County Sheriff's Department said the number is at blah. I heard a popping sound and screaming said blah, a blah at the blah. And that's when we all got down. There was a blah everywhere. The shooter's motive was reported to be blah. Citizens of blah were and blah to hear that something like this could happen in their community. President blah and the governor blah and their blah and blah with the victims and their families. Blah, gun control, blah. The NRA released a statement stating it, blah, with the victims but blah, Second Amendment rights, and blah. I will keep this available forever on my website so that when the next false flag or group shooting happens, we will be prepared and not have to work so hard because we're just going to be filling in the blanks from now on. That's what we're going to do. So, what do you feel about this? Have you noticed that there's a lot more shootings going on in the United States? Well, if you thought that, you would be absolutely right. Horrific events happening right now, as a matter of fact. So, what is this? Because we've talked about strange goings on, missing memories, perhaps altered memories, changed memories. But it doesn't help that people can't use basic common sense. I have been past the video of Cern exploding 12 times, that Cern has been shut down. This is probably the 10th time this year I've been fed similar BS. Now, if anyone would bother to read, you can go to Cern's site and they will have told you a year ago that it would be shut down at this time. There was no explosion. The video is fake. And I don't care how many times you pass me the same video, it will still be fake. Now, are people just stupid? Seriously, I'm going there today. Are you stupid? Because if you are passing information on that you haven't bothered to even read about, you aren't helping. You are part of the problem. We've had a lot of things on our mind that seems to be similar lately. These false flags. They use repetitive, predictive programming, transparency in number symbolism, over and over again. Now, our wizard sent us a wonderful article from VT today. I'm not going to go to it in full because I realize there's a lot of people from VT on Revolution Radio, so let me just give a synopsis. Because at this point, what's going on in this planet, they're not even bothering really to cover it up or hide it, because people won't take the time to even look. So people on alternative media are pretty much just as bad or worse, because yes, we've gotten to the point where a lot of people now realize that mainstream media is owned by 6 companies. That's every movie, every TV show, every newscast, every magazine. Okay, that's one group. Now, the alternative media usually takes from those reports and regurgitates what's proper or popular. And of course, we're getting into the pomp and circumstance, the bread and circuses that are going on all over the world right now. But it still bothers me. Little things that I can't explain. Some things, yeah, I can explain. They're pretty easy. You can look it up. You can see that's BS and move on. But what happens when we can't? When I talked about the Mandela effect last week, that struck a chord with a lot of our listeners, because people are smart. Our people are smart. And I know there's a bunch of bibliophiles out there, including me, people who likes books, likes to read, and it can be really frustrating when a book seems to vanish completely. Now, I don't mean difficult to find. I mean it's missing. Never seemed to exist. And absolutely no searches presented so much as a hint of a similar book. Now, when you look for books, there's a couple places you can go. It's important to look there because comments trigger people. And a lot of times, some of the things we see aren't related to this Mandela effect. It's something else. Like false memories. If enough people tell you something happened, you start believing it happened. It's how we work as human beings. Now, that's not because we're stupid. It's because we're meant to work together. We are meant and pushed towards consensus. It is not a bad thing about us. It is a beautiful thing about us. We must be a family. We must work together. Oh, and Mona, sweetheart, their sister of mine, who I was on your show yesterday, I reposted the article where the Canadian woman faces 10 years in prison for giving pigs water on a hot day. So, yeah, that happened. We have gotten to the point where showing any compassion is illegal. This is happening more and more and on an increasing basis. Now, for books, let's get back to the books. Search, especially for out-of-print books, Amazon.com books, Waterstone's Marketplace, sites like bookfinder.com, and usebooksearch.co.uk, as well as biblio.com, antiquarian booksellers. Try book dealers like alibris.com and alibris.co.uk. Now remember, something about the book, but not its title or author. You can try Amazon's Asheville, abbooks.com, Book Sleuth, and Goodreads. What's the name of the book? Or Reddit's, what's that book called? I'm talking about this to see if multiple people recall books that never existed in this current reality, which is speeding up and which is changing faster and faster. And books that change radically between realities, like, believe it or not, Curious George. I know, you'll laugh. Curious George and dual memories. Now, I've talked about dual memories in the past, but we should go back in time and speak of this again, because I can't remember how long ago it was. I think it was around 2013. Multiple personal memories and quantum computing and Cern. Yes, something did happen at Cern. They met that level that they said they wanted to, the PEV level. It's a sign of a P, so it's a sign of a galactic crossing. So that symbol alone goes from the Ankh to Christianity, and so on. Keep that in mind, because we're talking about Black Friday and Easter and the cross, because all of these things are kind of the same thing. It'll make sense in a minute. Schroeder's cat. A cat that, in quantum context, is both alive and dead. Is becoming far more real to many people right now. In the past couple of weeks, coincidence perhaps, announcements of more breakthroughs in quantum computing, DNA research, growing cells in a lab, both biologically unique cells, synthetic biological cells, going a full brain, which means this is quantum computing, because they were using a mouse brain for the last one. This is a big step. And then Cern doing this huge energy burst. Apparently used the largest amount of energy this planet has ever used in one machine. On the day it reached this level, there are coincidences. Remember I talked about the Black Knight? The satellite, of course. We've talked about this many times, but this stupid Pepsi, not a commercial, what? A mini documentary? Still on the site, and I suggest you watch it. The only important thing, though, about this, or you don't have to watch it, it doesn't matter, is that in this little documentary, it says that after years of searching, finally we translated this signal. The scientists, quote unquote, NASA, Nazi, never a straight answer, guys. They translated the signal and said on the first full moon, if the world sends them a sign, they will come. They will answer. So the sign's been sent. That's what Cern did. A huge burst, although it didn't look very exciting because you could watch it live. It was just a little monochrome screen again. So I don't know if they got to that level or not. Looks like. They were pretty excited, jumping around like little monkeys, talking about Curious George. They were very, very excited about reaching this level. And then NASA has announced, now this isn't one of the fake NASA said ones. This is one where you could really go to the NASA site and they actually say this, which I suggest people look at the NASA site if you want to hear what NASA said, or go to the Cern site if you want to hear what Cern said. Don't listen to a friend of mine telling you what Cern said or NASA said. Now, easy to back up. NASA said they were receiving signals from long, long ago and far, far away. Which is interesting because we're within 16 days of the return of the Jedi movies. You know those ones. I love them too, and I happen to be a big nerd, which you probably have mentioned and noticed before, so it's interesting when all of these things roll up together. Now, doesn't mean they're coming in. When you start looking at the real power of your brain, and when your brain starts working with other people's brains, together, whether we like it or not, whether we mean to or not, we have an enormous pull energetically. We can make things happen. A lot of the beings on this planet that people are seeing right now are happening because of powerful energy that we are projecting. Stupid or not, bad fruit or not, we still have this power. It matters how you use it. But unfortunately, whether you know what you're doing or not, people make things appear. Whether or not we are going to be calling this thing in, because it does look like we talked about this army of darkness on its way here. Something else is sending us signals now, and it's moving this way. Now you can look at some information about that on the page, but these breakthroughs in computing and mind science and brain science and Cern, who is going to be off for a couple weeks. It's planned, so don't lose your little marbles about that. People have been commenting and emailing me with a rush of personal dual memories. So that is, people are remembering two memories, usually two, for now anyway, that seem equally real, but they can't exist together on the same time stream. So let's say a young woman remembers taking the final exam, getting a 95, and in that course, the final exam grade was a grade for an entire course. The 95% grade enabled her to graduate with a higher GPA, grade point average, and secure the great job she has now. However, she now clearly remembers getting sick that day, so she had to miss the final exam and take it as a makeup exam. And in that course, anyone taking a makeup exam for almost any reason was penalized 5% automatically. So she knows that if the memory were true, she wouldn't have had the GPA she had. But she knows that through taking the exam on time and taking the exam late, memories have nearly equal weight in her mind. There's no way both memories could or should exist. Not in our version of reality, anyway. Okay, it's a fictional example, of course, but typical of what I've been hearing the last couple of weeks. Typical of what's on people's minds. And this has been a radical shift. A lot of times we hear about, celebrities, external memories, things that people could have or would have heard in the news, etc. In the past, I'll receive the occasional conflicted memory, such as a man whose grammar school is now an old building, but he remembers a completely different, newer building at the exact same location. These reports were infrequent, but credible nonetheless. However, though, what I'm hearing now are dual memories. People remembering them know that both memories can't be real in this time stream. They have a sense that one is real, but they're troubled with the feeling that the other memory is true, perhaps equally true as well. And it's worth noting because I'm wondering if an announcement or even a breakthrough about the new energies, the new quantum computings, has had an effect on the observer factor in our reality or realities. And we'll see multiple simultaneous, incongruous memories being reported about things. If Cern blew up, which was funny, at first it was reported happening 2 days before the experiment actually happened, so no. If it blew up, someone would have had one of the earthquake monitors would have gone off. That didn't happen, so I call BS. But these are major memories. And I know the Curious George thing will sound silly, but in real life, everyone I've talked to seems to remember Curious George with a tail. Most usually, no, he was a chimp, though some books said that he was a little monkey. So he shouldn't have had a tail. But they have specific memories of him with a tail. It's another interesting alternative memory. I did a fairly thorough search of Google images and found nothing showing Curious George with a tail. So if I looked or overlooked an actual Curious George image with a tail, let me know. If you can find one, him with the tail, let me know, because I remember him with a tail. But that's not the only interesting. I almost said curious, but that would be too much. Thing, though, about this memory. It is also the first where I've seen people pause and say, wait, I remember him with the tail. But I can also remember seeing him without one. How can that be? This is the dual memory thing, where we remember two things just as clearly. People have reported many dual memories. And these again are conflicting memories, nearly identical in most, but not all respects, that seem to be competing with each other. Sometimes both memories seem equally real. More often, people report that other memories are vague, distant, less real. but they're adamant that they have both memories. Can't explain why. So I'm interested in your memories of Curious George. I'm also interested in how widespread the dual memory phenomenon and whether it's increasing for you in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, or if you've noticed a marked change from October 31st. And in one case, pausing to reflect on the Great Pumpkin, somebody realized that they had 2 memories for a Halloween special that I did. One in which Linus, though, fell asleep and missed the Great Pumpkin, and one in which Linus was alone when he saw the Great Pumpkin. I remember the Great Pumpkin. Do you guys remember that? But I also remember that Linus fell asleep. Little memories. My son and I remember something that happened with both of us. That could not have happened, but we remember it the exact same way. Before we discussed it in detail, we wrote it down. An event that could not have happened, but we both remember that happened. So who remembers the Great Pumpkin appearing? Many people recall a different version of Charlie Brown, the Halloween special. Do you remember? So, I'm 100% certain about the ending of Charlie Brown Halloween special, that the Great Pumpkin, not just a shadow of Snoopy, actually made an appearance. There isn't a glimmer of doubt in my mind. So we'll see if they change the ending for later releases. So I checked Wikipedia. They list cut and changed scenes. Nothing like most people, you and I, seem to recall. Here's what I got. An email that I recently got a VHS copy and watched it on Halloween. I remember seeing it as a child. I remember a final scene where Linus and his sister are in the pumpkin patch. In my memory, Linus falls asleep and the Great Pumpkin appears. His sister tries to wake him up, but he sleeps through it. In the ending, she tells him he missed it, and he said something to the extent of trying to see the Great Pumpkin next year. I have pretty clear memories of that scene and what the Great Pumpkin looks like. I was very surprised, looking around, that apparently did not happen. So I called my mom, who was with me when I was a kid and watched a movie the first time. She remembers the scene clearly as well. So if you go to wikipedia.org, wiki, the Great Pumpkin, I'm going to have to keep looking because they're saying that ending did not happen, that the pumpkin never came. And I'll keep looking around and maybe you'll find it, and I'm absolutely certain of that ending. And I can't remember another Charlie Brown special that I might be confusing this with. So weird, or just me? A couple of, I joke about the Great Pumpkin and being his representation, the High Priestess of the Great Pumpkin. We used to do those shows on Sunday morning. Do you guys remember those? Well, I would be pretty clear about what the Great Pumpkin did and did not do, because I like him. It's one of my favorites, cartoons. But even my dad remembers the Great Pumpkin appearing. Now, the creators of The Simpsons seem to remember the Great Pumpkin. They seem to remember the pumpkin coming alive. So you can see season 20, episode 4, Treehouse of Horrors. I've never seen, or at least I can't remember that one particular. I don't watch much Simpsons anymore, other than when someone says they've predicted the future again, then I go look. But I'm pretty sure that didn't influence my memory. And I'm pretty sure that we see the Great Pumpkin on every year. I think he's agreeing that he sees the Great Pumpkin appear. The Charlie Brown says that. Odd. Not important really in the scheme of things. But because it's a seasonal interest, and because something bizarre seems to happen every Halloween. We've talked about why that day is strange before. We've talked about the esoteric meanings and all that stuff, and I can go into it in detail, and I probably make you sick when I do it. But there's something else that again happened on one of those dates that keep bothering me lately. Do you remember War of the Worlds? Do you remember that? Now, I'm starting to think that really happened. I know that's crazy talk. But apparently, the mass hysteria, complete hoax. That it didn't happen. That part didn't happen. Nobody freaked out. Nobody got in the cars and were driving around and going crazy. But a really interesting question came up, and if you want me to say your name live on air when you send me questions, please put that in your email to me, because I don't want to do it without asking. Very interesting, and we can do a whole show just on that. I think I'd need a whole show, because there's such strange events with the War of the Worlds. The one that was the radio show, do you guys remember at least hearing about that one? Well, I think it happened, because the more we look at timelines, the more I see that a lot of these things don't look ancient. Even the newly discovered pyramids and things underwater that still have the same destruction on the nose, because the noses look too African. That means that even though that statue may be old, ancient perhaps, the damage is relatively new. So, we're being screwed with, guys. I think we get that. That seems fairly obvious right now to everybody I speak to. But when there's so many coincidences like Cern, their signal, Pepsi with the colors of France and America, saying show us a sign and we'll come back, and the Black Knight, and we know who the Black Knight is, like the Dark Father the Jesuits pray to. This is your Lucifer. This is your evil entity. This is the bad guy. Did we just call him? Why are things like this being shown to us over and over again? Now the killings, Black Knight, Black Lives Matter. It's an important period of time, for retail profits in the United States. challenged by anti-racist protests. Because all across the United States, from Chicago, Minneapolis, San Diego, Cincinnati, Portland, Seattle, Burlington, on and on and on, thousands took to the street, demanding an end to the police killings of African Americans, adults, and children, some sleeping in their beds. In Chicago, the Magnificent Mile was the target of demonstrations in the Loop, where, like in other cities and suburbs, capitalist retailers encouraged the mindless consumption during the period between late November and the beginning of the year. Advertising agencies expend tremendous resources to encourage workers and oppressed peoples to enter the shopping fray, offering purported deals on electronic merchandise, substantial portion of which are marketing to children and teenagers. Major firms in the United States gauge their performance during this season as a barometer of even the viability of the capitalist system overall. Now, despite the monumental efforts by retailers, sales were down Black Friday and holiday weekend. The corporate media outlets that advance the notion of consumer confidence as key aspect of the strength of the U.S. economy reported a decline in revenue, although attributing it to factors such as early shopping, online purchases. Now, according to Reuters press agency, data from analysis from Retail Next showed overall sales for both days that fell 1.5% on flat consumer traffic, while average spending per shopper dropped 1.4%. Preliminary data from Shopper Talk showed sales at stores totaled $12.1 billion Thursday and Friday. The company said that it was an estimated decrease from last year, but did not give the percentage of decline due to the internal change in the way it calculates the data. Now, last year it reported sales of $12.29 billion for that same period. Corporate spokespeople attempt to explain any declines. Now, it certainly can't be because you're broke. It looks like we're broke. I'm broke. I'm pretty sure you guys are in the same situation, or we'd be out working right now, right? Majority of us are sick in one way or another, or we'd be working, or we're old, or we're crippled, or we're disabled, or there's something wrong with us. We're here in the middle of the afternoon doing this. We're not okay. Now, obviously, there's a rising population, and the often touted recovery translating into lower sales during the premier time for showcasing new merchandise does not bode well for the future capitalist retail markets. These results indicate that there are other factors which are leading the fall in sales. I bet. And since the sales are kind of ethnically targeting people, it's far more expensive to be poor than it is to be rich. If you're rich, you can buy in bulk. You can wait during the year when sales are actually good, like January, February. Buy what you need, have someone else get it. But when you're poor, you have to buy full price. So, within the context of over one-third of the labor force being what they call non-participatory status. A large segment of this population is African American. Even though the broader unemployment rate is around 5%, amongst African Americans it is about 9.2 to 10, depending on where you look for those numbers. Now, the latest unemployment figures among African Americans for October this year, 2015, issued by the Bureau of Labor Stats, this jobless rate did not change since the month of September, making nearly twice the number of the national average. Teenagers between 16 and 19 plagued with joblessness, 25.6%, which officially declined from 31.5 in September. African American women over 20 are unemployed at 8.1%. African American men over 20 are jobless, 9.2%, increase from 8.9 for the month before. These manifestations are continuing. And 1 year after the aftermath of the rebellions in Ferguson, subsequent expansion of Black Lives Matter movement, African Americans in their rallies escalated their demonstrations by marching into shopping malls, disrupting business, blocking highways, thoroughfares, to illustrate the emergency of a crisis of police abuse and killings and the refusal of state apparatus to take any kind of action. The U.S., beyond increasing militarized police now wearing black. Now, I told you what Cern was doing, looking for the blackness. There's darkness and there's darkness, but you know the kind that they're calling. Good and bad is only a matter of degrees. They are not different things. Hot and cold are both temperatures. They are degrees. They are not a different thing. Now, a fundamental transformation, political, economic system is the only hope for addressing these concerns, providing sustainable solutions. Stopping this very obvious, to me anyway, predictive programming that they are ramming down your throats. False flag terrorist networks telegraph what they are doing and what they will be doing, using predictive programming, transparency, number symbolism. The Rothschild flagship publication Economist named the date of the 11, 13, 15 Paris attacks in advance. Jason Wilcox, a member of the London, UK meetup group 9/11 Keep Talking, gave a presentation to the group a few months ago on this fascinating and controversial topic entitled Magic Numbers, Fabricated Terror. In 1977, an article by Vincent Salandria entitled The Design of Warren Report to Fall to Pieces was published. It was suggested that the Kennedy assassination was a transparent conspiracy. That is, a conspiracy hidden in plain sight. Clues left behind, as if they want us to know. And although Vincent didn't mention numerology, Jason argues that subsequent events leave the same clues in the forms of numbers such as 9, 11, 7, 7, Charlie Hebdo. I wish to argue that these numbers are not neutral signifiers, but carry a powerful meaning, both unconsciously to the multitude and consciously to those who are able to see through the official explanation. Along these lines, we could look at 11 examples of Illuminati numerology, 11 questions for Veterans Day. And why 77 keeps coming up and 1111 keeps coming up. There's a bus in Beijing symbolizing a link between Beijing and London. The announcement that London would get the Olympics came almost simultaneously with the 7/7 2005 attack. We have seen this happen again and again. The Simpsons episode offering predictive programming of 9/11. We've done whole shows on that. From Wikipedia, the party music was originally scheduled to be released in early September 2001, but the release was delayed till November 2001 due to cover art which depicted Boots Riley and Pam the Funkstress destroying the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center using a Covert Labs digital chromatic tuner as a detonator. The original cover was created in June 2001. Israelis celebrate Purim, the holiday that celebrates Jews infiltrating imperial governments and tricking them into killing Jews' enemies by dressing up their children as the Twin Towers being attacked by airplanes. And you can see, if you want to go to veteranstoday.com, an article called Israel Glorifies Successful 9/11 Attacks. There are dozens, if not hundreds of dozens, of similar examples. The perpetrators appear to be using transparency to convince us that we are helpless, to gain our docile consent, or tactic, if you will. Me, I'm not helpless. I have not consented. But you really need to watch this. Look at these things, because it's not an accident that we keep seeing the same things played out in the exact same way over and over again. City of Lights, in the Year of Light, all things Paris. Black Friday. Again, the numbers, the 239 days. Trying to look at the time here. I got 7 minutes, so trying to think if I should start this. Let's start this. You can go through Paris a little bit. But I want us to think about Black Friday, because we need to know what that is. What Black Friday is, and why our Christian brothers and sisters, and we're going to be doing a whole story on that Thursday, have been completely manipulated into believing a religion and a God and a Savior that has nothing to do with you. As a matter of fact, this God says he's here to split up families. That's what the Bible says. This is a very scary thing. Now, Eli, Eli, Lema, Sabachthani. That means, my God, why have you abandoned me? Because at noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. I've had many people emailing with the possibility of something big taking place Black Friday. I didn't dismiss it in the least. But my objective was to shed light on specific parallels, which I believe are significant, not speculate. the symbolism of the last 6 months in the world, all these events point to a far deeper truth of the place we are in, all the people, all the world, the place we are in right now in history. If you remember the crucifixion, sign of the cross, earlier the sign was a P. Earlier it's taken from the Ankhs. We'll have to do a whole show and I can show you how that changed. Before that it just means galactic crossing or birth. Because the opening, been told that the opening is ahead. No, it's a birth. Now, the crucifixion was the original Black Friday for darkness falling on the whole land. Interesting, but not surprising, this Black Friday is a name used to describe a day that had become the most unabashed display of idolatry following a day of gratitude, which is a day of mourning for everybody who lost their lands on that. But I'm not against people celebrating. We don't celebrate enough. But over the span of... We'll talk about this when I get back. So, you're listening to... Welcome back, everyone. Now, our planet. We know that a joint task force exercise, joint again, called a fleet exercise, designed to build upon previous demonstrated battle group capabilities across all warfare areas. This is going to be going on for all of December. This is on now. Now, if you want to look realistically on who is doing the terror on this planet, we wouldn't look to Israel, which is a state, by the way, not a country. State of who? United States. United States, like Canada, is still owned by Britain. It is. Now, the shooting at Planned Parenthood clinic is a milestone. The white male terrorist harming more people than Syrian refugees have in the last 14 years since 9/11. While Syrian refugees have killed or injured 0 Americans in terrorist attacks, in the last decade and a half, this still unidentified shooter, describing as white male with a beard, usually carrying some sort of AK-47 or something, harming people of various numbers, victims. But that terrorist attack, which I will be going into, is one of hundreds this year. With still over a month left to go till 2016, Washington Post, Chris Instagram tweeted a graphic on the 28th showing that there have been more mass shootings in 2015 than days have passed. 351 mass shootings and 331 days not counting what did or did not happen at Planned Parenthood. Now, some 785,000 refugees have made their home or made a home for their family in the United States since 9/11. The only arrests of any refugees for terrorism in the last 15 years was the apprehension of 2 Israeli refugees for allegedly conspiring with Al-Qaeda cells in the United States. Besides, refugees have had to endure a thorough screening process before entering the United States. The Syrian refugees currently entering the U.S. carefully selected for settlement, making it virtually impossible for anyone connected to terrorist groups to gain entry. So when you compare attacks, people who get shot up in movie theaters and schools, because those are terrorist attacks. You compare these, the figures, the amounts of terrorist attacks really being carried out by Syrian refugees since 9/11, 0. It's easy to see why white terrorism is far more of a threat to America than people fleeing war zones with children. If the United States government is serious about stopping terrorism, they have plenty of work to do in their own home. And this home is about to be shaken to its core. I absolutely see that. Black Friday is what United States has become. Unabashed display of idolatry. Over the span of, moderately short existence, I've watched this day turn, showing one of self-indulgence as grown men and women pressing up against locked doors, waiting to stampede one another so they won't miss saving money on an inanimate object that does nothing to satisfy. United States, 239th year. The number of days between Good Friday and Black Friday, 239 days. This is not a common occurrence, as each year the days vary. For example, 2006 there were 246 days. 2017 there will be 225 days. 239 is how most of the world will write 9/23 or September 23rd. I've been talking about this and what is about to take place on 9/23/2017. Black Friday this year is 666 days from 9/23/17. People are trampling each other for cheap goods, mere hours after being thankful for what they already have. Think about that. Because there's a lot of darkness these days. All things black. College, professional teams, sports teams, all have black uniforms now. Your cops, which isn't even after their team colors anymore. And I want you to think for a moment. I mean, really think. I speak about these things from experience, as the world and material possessions have gripped my soul for, much of my life. But there's something quite different about this day, which makes it stand out from Christmas even. It is one specific day where self-indulgence is glorified. Black Friday is outwardly a celebration of unrestrained appetite. It is for Cain. It is for cons and consumers and the cabal It is a praise chorus embraced by those who decry capitalism, and a porcelain mask to be worn by those who do not want to see their own face. It's not a coincidence that it bears the same name. The concept of Black Friday shows some of the very things people believe Jesus hung on the cross to save people from. Idol worship is a theme of prophetic messages seen in all of these current events. If we had been crucified, we don't gratify the desires of a sinful nature, you would think, if you believed in that, if that meant something to you. But since the big religions to me are the exact same religion, different flavors of, no one should be doing this. Black Friday is an outward display of the rebellion. That we reject the truth of the meaning, or the cross, or the Christ, or the Christos, that entity, that perfection of a being, which we are supposed to be. This is completely thrown aside. We as society have chosen to embrace the dark side. The Republic has fallen. We are the fallen now. We have embraced the trappings of this world. And whether you do it or do not do it, it's very close, isn't it? We have been told that there have been signs in the heavens and on earth. That on that day, the world went dark, the earth split open. On 9/23/17, the sign of Revelation 12 will be taking place for the first time in history. I have pictures, designs, things that are going to be happening in the sky. First time in history. This event displays the birth of the king planet Jupiter from the Virgin, or the Virgo, V. I don't believe it is by chance that in America's 239th year, we see a 239th day spread between Good Friday and Black Friday. Prophetic tribute to the setting of the sun, the darkening of America, and it doesn't mean color here. But who had been given so much that turned its back on what it could have been? The dawning of a new era has begun, and it's not good. You know, many would argue that this United States and Canada was founded by Masons, also founded by those seeking religious freedom. Neither of which are true. We'll go into that in detail too. Yes, later people who wanted religious freedom came here, but you can't want religious freedom and not give it. If that was the true nature of the people who came over here, then you would never have made the natives give up their religion. Thanksgiving happens on the day of a massacre, on a day when graves were defiled, because the people they sent over here, and know that thousands died on their way over here. They were filthy. They weren't in ships made for people. They were usually in ships made for livestock, with no facilities, no way to clean themselves. The chances of getting over here healthy were slim to none. So they brought people over here to die. thinking maybe you'll have a few that will live, the rats will live, that will at least spread enough illnesses to kill the people here. But we are told in every religion not to love the world or the things in the world. The desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride and possessions. Your guy, this father, whether he's dark or not, has told you not to do that. And the world is passing away along with its desires. Black Friday is a celebration of love for things of this world. Good Friday is supposed to be a celebration of the finished work of the cross. This is, again, the P. The two Fridays are in direct contradiction to one another. 239 days apart in Babylon's 239th year. America did not create commercialism, of course, or idolatry, but it has certainly spearheaded the escalation in the last 100 or so years. Symbolically, we can now see it is time to choose whom you serve, because it cannot be both. You can never serve two masters. Almost every book says this, that you serve God or Mammon. Mammon is the earth, but it's also the darkness. It is also the abyss, because there's dark and there's dark. And the darkness that most are serving is the dark night, who it looks like we just called. 9/23/17 is the third day after a possible start date of the Feast of Trumpets, known as the Feast, in which no man knows the day or the hour. It is also the Feast of Resurrection. 239 connects us to 9/23. As I've said before, 9/23/15 has always been about 9/23/17. 9/23/17 is 3 days after the last day of year 5777 on the Hebrew calendar. 239, or 14, or 7 plus 7 as well. 239 days separates us between the celebration of the cross, the galactic center, the galactic crossing, the great time, the Ankh, and the celebration of the world in the 239th year of America. Good Friday or Black Friday. You cannot serve two masters. Biblical prophecy unfolding as they knew it would, because they wrote it for this. This is not an ancient book. It was written a couple hundred years ago for this purpose, for this timeline. Of course, we can't get the notes of the creators of the book because King James killed them. Each and every one. They were writing for the king. We are in a battle. Now, some say this is duality. I don't look at it quite as something dual. Something more like, what would we call it? Polarity. That we are not supposed to choose one end of the stick. We're supposed to find a balance in the middle. Be more like the scales. Now let me remind you of something in this polarity, in case you didn't get a chance to hear me talk with Mona yesterday. I just went on. It was nice surprise. She invited me over, so we were on for a little bit. It's always fun. But polarity, because humans have always known this. We think it's duality, but it is not. Even that is a lie, and it makes no sense. Here's polarity. Because everything is, yes, dual, But everything has poles. Everything has a pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree only. Extremes always meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled. I've said before that the cure is always with the poison. Always. They tell you exactly what to do. Exactly what you need to do. Each and every one. Each and every time. Now the principle of polarity, and it's important now. Because this principle embodies the truth that everything is. Everything has these two poles. Everything has its own pair and remedy inside it, all of which are very old. It explains old paradoxes that are perplexing people right now, or have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows: thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. Pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the exact same time. All truths are half-truths. Every truth is a half-lie. There are two sides to everything, on and on and on. It explains that in everything there are two poles, opposite aspects, and that the opposites are really only the two extremes of the exact same thing, with many varying degrees between them, like hot and cold. Although opposites are really the same thing, the differences consist merely of the degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer. See if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. Will heat or cold be the same for me as it is for you? Because there is no such thing as opposite or absolute heat. No such thing as absolute cold. The two terms, heat and cold, simply indicate varying degrees of the exact same thing. And that same thing which manifests as heat and cold is merely a form, a variety, a rate of vibration. So heat and cold are simply the two poles of which we call heat. The phenomenon attendant thereon are manifestations of the principle of these polarities. The same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness. They are the same thing. The difference consisting of varying degrees between two poles of one phenomenon. Where does lightness begin? Where does darkness leave off? What is the difference between large and small, hard and soft, black and white, sharp and dull, noise and quiet, high and low, between positive and negative? This principle, this polarity, explains this. And no other principle can supersede this. The same principle operates on the mental plane. Let us take a radical and extreme example. Love and hate. Two mental states apparently totally different. Yet there are degrees of love, degrees of hate, and a middle point in which we use the terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we are at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither a thing. All are simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see if you think for a moment. And more than this, considered more important by some, is the possibility to change the vibrations of hate to the vibrations of love in your own mind and in the mind of others. Now, hearing me say this, I'm sure you have personal experience of involuntary rapid transition from love to hate, and there is a reverse in your own ease and that of others. And you will therefore realize the possibility of this being established by the use of your will, by the means of formulas, if you like. Good and evil are only poles of the exact same thing. Understanding the art of transmuting evil into good can happen by using the application of this principle. You can change it. You can make someone like you. You can. You can change their idea about you. You can. I've seen it done. It is an art of polarization. It becomes a phase of mental alchemy, if you will. It's known, it's practiced, it's ancient, it's modern. It's being used on us. We're being manipulated to love and hate at incredibly rapid levels here. And watching people fall away with their ideas and not seeing what this obviously is. This feast, this is the year of light. This could be a wonderful time. This could be the beginning of the end. Animals are committing suicide. I have a little piece on the page. Science can't explain this. I can explain this. How do you feel right now? Physically, myself, I'm being challenged, but mentally, good. I'm good. And feel positive, too, about things. Yeah, I'm in pain, but I feel really strong. Just not physically. But I'm watching the things that I told you were going to happen and are happening, that people are being manipulated. The only reason I bring this up, knowing is half the battle. If you know what's going on, you have a chance. We could, on Black Friday, celebrate mothers. The triple darkness from which we were born. The P. Symbol. The Chi Rho. The galactic crossing. This too is the Yang. We could on Black Friday be celebrating our mothers. That is Mother's Day. We could be celebrating that. Our births. The women that we come carried on the mothership. How we got here. We could be doing that. Instead of a feast of oblivion. It's looking to me, anyway, that more and more people are just so beyond saving now. So beyond. They have fallen away. There are things that can no longer be a coincidence, though. Can't be. Too many people are dying. Too many people are being manipulated into absolute hate when you can see who's being pushed. The mind control, the assassins that I've told you about that are being let loose. Paris, the city of lights and the year of lights and all things Paris. hosting the UN Climate Change Conference that I told you about. Same day, in the same city that experienced the horrific events of 11/13. The IMF announces it will include Chinese yuan as a reserve currency. What connects Lima 2015 and Paris 2015? 11. As much as I'd like to stop talking about 11s, if they would leave me alone, I would. And I am not going to speculate or arrive at any conclusion here, unfortunately. I simply want to create an exhausted list of 11s that we have seen so far, with the inclusion of those which most recently surfaced. The interwoven pieces in this tapestry are intersecting at a faster and faster, almost exponential rate now. We can't ignore it, and it is not my intent that anyone miss the larger picture. And in the near future, I hope I could put a video together with all these pieces. But specifically, I look at France, Paris, who is paradise, peristalsis, Paris and the US, prophetically interlocked, as they were with America's founding. No way these numbers revealed here are by accident, as the world elite are making decisions to further the Dark Knight, the Dark Father, the Darth Vader agenda. We see the spiritual manifestation into the physical. Hiding in plain sight has always been the mantra, right? Hiding? Not anymore. They don't care. Chaos, disorder, and judgment. 11 falls just short of 12, which is the heavenly government and order. We see 11s manifesting everywhere, just as man's government will make a push for the perfection just prior to the completion of an age. 11 turns to 12. But first, these things must come to pass. Lima, 2015, IMF, World Bank Group, October 9th to the 11th. Concludes on the 11th, of course, 2 days, 2 plus 9, even that equals 11. Held in Banco de la Nación Tower, Peru's tallest building, 452 feet. 4 plus 5 plus 2, 11. The UN Climate Change Conference begins last day of the month, 11. Just before 11 turns to 12, concludes December 11th, lasts 11 days, CMP 11. So let's recap a few things. Paris attacks were 311 days from the Charlie Hebdo massacre, where 11 died and 11 were injured. The Paris attacks, 11/13, mixed with Hebdo, we have a total of 11 11s. But what few people realize is this all began with Hebdo on 11/3/11, when they were presumably going to change their name to Sharia Hebdo, with Muhammad listed as editor-in-chief. The same year, 3/11/11, is when Fukushima pucked the world. Sorry, I couldn't resist. As in nuked. That's what I call a double entendre. The fact that it's a French pronunciation is as much a coincidence as is the name of the town in which Japan is puking radioactive material all over the planet. Fukushima. F-U? Yeah. We've gone into a lot of things about the 11s. But the two weirdest speeches in the modern world history by two French people both point to Paris. And it's not a coincidence that in the year Pope Francis began the work of his Dark Father on the Babel religion, and his name means Frenchman, or one from France. Major world events all were pointing to France, from Paris attacks to the UN climate conference. You may recall the bizarre Numerology, the speech given by IMF chair Christine Lagarde, 2014, forgive me, or the 500 Days to Global Climate Chaos speech by the French Foreign Minister, also 2014, deliberately timed. So here's the proof. Christine Lagarde, born January 1956, so she's 59, Paris, France. Laurent Fabius, born August 1946. He is 69. So they are born 3,422 days apart. Add those numbers, you get 11. Lagarde is 59. Fabius, 69. Add the numbers, 14 and 15, 29. 2 plus 9, 11. Lagarde's speech, 684, 18, or 666 before 11/30, 2015. 566 days before 11/30, 2015. Lagarde's speech, 767 days from 11/13/15. Climate chaos speech, 549, 18, or 666 days before 11/13/15. When we take the 566 and the 667, we see another 666 days by taking the 7 and the 5 separately at their midpoint. If you add the 5 and 7, you get 12. To see the 6 and the 6 would complete the 2 and make it 666 and 666. Paris is the city of lights. Paris is a Roman city. It goes back to the age of Rome. It links with the Pope because the people in charge of the Vatican are the same Roman lords and laws and the Roman guys that were always in control, or have been in control of Europe for a very long time. The world, really. Same guys. But Paris is a Roman city. No. It's interesting, in the year of light, Anna Lucy, or the year of Lucifer, it keeps coming back to Paris. The day leading up to the climate conference, you see protesters sporting angel wings dancing around the streets of Paris. What is going on here? Either everything is coincidence or nothing is. Or both things are true at the same time. Paris is referred to often as the city of light, La Ville Luminaire, both because of its leading role during the Age of Enlightenment, or desecration, depending on how you look at it, and more literally because Paris is one of the first European cities to adopt gas light, street lighting. 1860s, the boulevards and streets of Paris were illuminated by 56,000, 56, that's 11 again, gas lights. The two Air France flights that were diverted on 11/17 had a clear prophetic message. Much can be learned from the intimate relationship with France and America, as the founding of America was birthed out of the alliance of these two countries. And as we approach the end of America, which will have repercussions worldwide, don't think it won't, it's no coincidence that we keep seeing this interwoven tapestry, again tying these two countries together through seemingly independent events. The engraver Henry Wolff, who came to America from France just 15 years ahead of the Statue of Liberty, was just 6 kilometers away from the train crash that killed 11 the day after Paris attacks. Remember the double rainbow I told you about at the World Trade Center on the eve of 9/11? I have a picture on my page. The symbol at the modern Tower of Babel, which is moved here. You know what God does to that, right? Well, gods do to that. Gods said we will confuse them. I don't know how God's going to make us any more confused, because we're pretty confused right now, but that being reminds us who that symbol is. The covenant that was made, again, to judge the world by flood, has been hijacked to symbolize the complete anti-God state of mind. Pride, disillusion, lust, becoming the carnivore. Khan, Cain, King, Queen, Cain. So the rainbow tells us judgment is coming. Likewise, the other 9/11 events point to the second Babylon, Babel, coming fast. The location of these two verses are not an accident. I will establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will the flood to destroy the earth. Genesis 9:11. This is why it's called Babel. Because the Lord, he says, let us confuse the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. 11:9. Bush 11:90 delivers the now speech. 9/11/2001 terrorist attacks. 9/11/2012 Benghazi. 11/11/11:33. The day of the attack 11. The date of the attack September 11th or 9/11. 9 plus 1 plus 1 is still 11. 9/11 is an emergency number. 9 plus 1 plus 1 is 11. September 11th is the 254th day of the year. 2 plus 5 plus 4 is 11. Some say 245 victims were in the planes, and others say 246. If in fact it is 245, there's another 11. I can go on and on and on, and I will leave you a list for my fellow nerds out there. But these keep going in our face. If you recall what's going on in the States right now, Fort Jackson, that unleashed the Manchurian candidate Chris Harper Mercer. Don't you realize that hapless Chris was severely disabled, self-proclaimed headbanger, seriously mentally ill, developmentally disabled individual. He required a regimen of psychotic drugs, including lithium, to control his behavior and multiple personality disorder. And hardly anyone even gets that anymore. Poor Chris, though, couldn't function without them. Wrapping this all together, we've talked about how the timelines been changed. What are these shadow beings that we're seeing all around us? Interesting article about that on the page, by the way. I want to give you another interpretation. Of course, my opinion, just a theory. So much is being changed so quickly that we are manifesting things, that we aren't just one person. Multiple personality is when another timeline takes over. It's not imagination, it's really happening. People describe it as being you and not you. I think that's what's going on, and it's happening more and more and more. And some of these drugs, lithium included, helps you make the trigger. There's many drugs, of course, but lithium's a big one. Him not being able to function with this combination of drugs. And I'll get you a list of the combo that he was on. You take them, one personality stays. You miss one drug, you're calling another one up. After being in service at Fort Jackson, they allege that Chris purchased over the internet a Nazi reproduction World War II death head captain cap for $155. Additionally, over the internet, he identified himself as by a Nazi handle, the Iron Cross 45. 1945 is the year that the Nazis went underground and changed their venue to the United States. Why are we seeing so much Nazi symbolism? Why are there so many movies now and TV shows about the Nazis? And this is becoming faster and faster and faster, and more and more and more. But it means that some entity or entities deliberately implanted one or more of Chris's alters with a Nazi SS doctrine for some sort of future sleeper operation. I say that it was part of his Fort Jackson, Fort Bragg, CIA, MK Ultra secret mind control programming, and Columbia, South Carolina. That happens repeatedly now. Just think about it. How does Chris, with all of his serious mental disabilities and psychotic drugs, find himself in service in Columbia at Fort Jackson, then turn up as a military intelligence patsy and poster boy on a U.S. presidential and congressional level for national gun control? He was a black Manchurian candidate and a military intelligence patsy, used to roll into gun control. That's why gun control and the NRA are always at the end of my false flag, just fill in the blanks thing. Now, for those of you who don't want to draw conclusions, let Himmler make it plain to you and tell you what the game is really on here. Germans who wish to use firearms should join the SS or the SA. Ordinary citizens don't need guns, as having guns doesn't serve the Nazi state. United States, the Nazis didn't go away. You didn't win, you got them. The same people have taken over. Guns in the hands of U.S. citizens doesn't serve the global satanic cabals and the Illuminati agenda. And unfortunately, far too many people are far too insane to be touching anything like that. You are. Just turn on television for 5 minutes. Listen to people talk. You're telling me these people should have guns? Anyway, it shouldn't be surprising that children of the Fort Bragg military complex in Colombia would be used, fronted, forced, tried to shield the Richland County Sheriff's Department on that time, and the savage Benfields that mimic the brazen savagery, the cruelty of Lucifer's servants in this year of light, the SS, the Knights of the Black Sun. Coming. Black Sun, Black Knight, it's here. Soon. But the next day, after the Columbia Spring Valley High School incident, Tuesday, October 27th, 2015, Sodomite President Barack Obama addressed the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Chicago. Most notable, he told them, too often law enforcement gets the scapegoat for broader failures in our society. This association was founded in Chicago, 1893, as the National Chief of Police Union. The organization has expanded over the years with the goals of advancing science and the art of police work, promoting improved practices through law enforcement, community, fostering cooperation, and information exchange amongst police. In the history of IACP, one former president of the union stands out as the man most responsible for the widespread militarization of the police, the new Black Guard. August Gus Vollmer, 1876-1955. He was the first to give police officers a military rank structure. You didn't have that before then. And a designated military-style uniform. They started to use and look to the military as a way of organizing a police force. So they would have uniforms, and they would have military ranks, captain, major, that sort of thing. That's where we see the beginnings of the dark knights who patrol your police and your state and your lands. Join me Thursday. We'll do something else. I'll think of it by then. Bye for now, guys. Love you.